Hi, it's Christine Howard here today for another episode of Rise in Radiance. I'm glad you are here. As you know, I am an expert in radiant achievement. And today I have an amazingly radiant woman who has achieved many things in her life, both personally and professionally. I would like to introduce my guest, Sandra Dee Robinson. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to gush on you for a few moments as I introduce you. Feel free to add anything I miss, but I have a great set of questions. I love to add that structure, and really we'll be all about having a conversation together today on achievement and soul-centered calling. So as I set the stage so people know more who you are, I know you've been dubbed by the media the charisma coach. And at first you resisted it, but then taking a step back, you saw that it fits you. And I think it fits you because that's how I first met you actually several years ago now. You were teaching your Charisma on Camera program. And it really inspired me it educated and inspired me to learn more and to up my game in front of the camera.
Yay.
So yes, glad that I'm here doing that with you today. So you have a background as a television actress, have been in soap operas, TV shows for many, many years, but you are also a speaker, a trainer, an author, a radio host. How many hats are you wearing? A lot. And it doesn't stop there, right? You've created Charisma on Camera. And you are a huge nature lover. I've seen pictures of your ranch and your horses and your animals. You're also a huge environmental as well as animal advocate, which is close to my heart too. And an overall personal empowerment enthusiast. Love that.
Yeah, when I came across that, I went, yeah, that's pretty much, that's
right,
what gets
that
me.
kind of pulls it all together, all those hats, right? So I know one of the things too that was a more recent addition to your resume or to your businesses is your horse-powered consulting. And you've done programs with the horses, and I've heard some amazing stories about bringing these beautiful beasts into work with people and helping them. And I'm hoping we can dive a little bit into that today. Yeah, beautiful. So thank you again for being here. I'm excited to reconnect with you and really dive into radiant achievement and you following your soul-centered calling and what you're up to.
Your whole conversation just gets me excited because that's really, it's very parallel to what I feel is so important, especially now. I mean, following that whole radiance and following your calling and really having a great sense of, that authentic self-worth is one of your terms. And I said before we started recording that that's just kind of what was my biggest challenge and is my biggest thrill to be able to empower people with. So that's so on board with what you're doing. I think it's great.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I love connecting with other women that are in that frame of mind and on that journey too. So helping other women, engage. And I think that's part of the podcast too and my work is, and all of us to really, how can we make our mark to ignite, spark, inspire who the women are that are in our circles to follow their calling, to step up, to own their power and their worth. And I look forward to diving into, I have a few questions but we're going to have a conversation where I'd like to imagine we're sitting on a couple chairs across from each other, maybe with a glass of wine.
Well, we are. I don't have the wine yet.
I don't either. It's a little early in San Diego here.
That'll be later.
Right. So I'd like to start because, again, I'm all about radiant achievement and really listening to that calling. I'd like to have you take us back and, take me back, take the listeners back and put us in that place where you first felt that calling. And it could be about some of your recent work. It could be, back then, way back when, and how that felt for you and how it unfolded and then how you went into action from there.
Well, it's interesting because I thought, as you were asking that, I instantly started to think, but I had two. So my first calling, if you want to call it that, and my main calling is actually to empower people and help them realize,
Mm-hmm.
see themselves more like God sees them, so that they can move from where they are to where God wants them to be. And I know that that's bringing in the higher power and all that. And if you don't believe in that, then maybe you don't get that. But that's kind of how I feel. And I'm just a facilitator for that. Whether I'm working with the horses or whether I'm working directly with somebody or with a group or a company, it's kind of all the same thing. It's like getting people to really understand how perfect they are in their own design, that there's nothing wrong with them. In fact, they have everything that they already need in order to get done what is in their heart to be able to do. And to think big and not be afraid to go there and trust that they've got it, you know. Beautiful. I didn't do that. My first calling was, if you had told me that my calling was going to be that when I was younger, I probably would have crawled onto a rock and died, because I could not. I mean, I had in school, you do those tests that tell you what your skills are good for. When you grow up, you'd be a great whatever. And they're pretty good tests, because when I was little, they said you could be a great teacher. So shy, no self-esteem. If anybody had heard me speak, they might know my story that my closest sibling is 14 years older than I am. So mom wasn't too crazy about siblings and about children in general. So I'm surprised I have two siblings. But when I came along, I was called the bonus baby, as some people say.
I saw that in your bio.
Mom would have rather had the cash back. She was not real crazy about me being around. So I was literally told things verbatim. Life would be better if you hadn't been born. You know, that's kind of sets the bar a little low for the self-esteem when you're a young girl.
Absolutely.
So my first calling was really just to find a way to survive that and get away from that. But I didn't know what I was doing. I just got introduced to acting when I was in school. And I thought, how fun. I can be someone else because I'm not worthy of being here.
Wow.
So when I become someone else, I actually had people telling me good things. So that was acceptance, which I wasn't getting from my mother. So you can see how that was actually a survival mechanism that was given to me to get me to the next thing.
Absolutely.
Which was, you know, I became successful in that, and I was making a lot of money, and I had this platform. And as you said, I've always been drawn to animal causes or whatever. People might identify with this, whatever their charity or whatever their heart is set to, whatever problem in the world they would like to solve. My heart was in that. And I had this platform. And I really like to work with women and showing them they have a platform wherever you are. You don't have to be an actor to have a platform, but you can, if you don't think you have one, we can create one for you. But I had that. I was on TV, I was being interviewed, and I was afraid to look people in the eye. I wasn't really good to fans in the beginning because I thought, why would they want to talk to me?
Wow.
Disconnect between the girl walking down the red carpet and acting as if,
right,
and forced to have a conversation that wouldn't walk into a room where I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
So there was a real problem there, and that's where the second calling started to come forth, which having to figure out who the heck I was. Why was I even here? What the real thing was, I was humiliated at an audition once because it was for an infomercial. We used to call that hush money because you can make a lot of money doing infomercials. And I was on TV every day doing my soap. And so they thought, oh, she's going to be great. So I came in, I started to audition, and the casting director said, just be yourself. Right? Anybody in video with a photographer, you know, or videographer, oh, just be yourself. Well, when you don't have anything in that file, that left me flailing. I mean, tell me to be Mrs. Santa Claus. Tell me to be a peach. Tell me to be a tree. Right. Then like, tell me to be myself. Are you crazy? That's not worthy of being. And so I actually set off hiring performance coaches because I failed that day. I actually left in tears. He looked like he was. I was pitiful and he was very disappointed. It was humiliating, and I cried for the 2-hour ride home. I was in LA. I was only going 6 miles, but it's 2 hours on the freeway. So.
Yes.
Yeah, you know that. So that was the moment of change. And I hired performance coaches, and I learned that performance is not where I needed to change. I needed to change from the inside. Yeah. Wow. And that was, it was sometimes a difficult journey, sometimes something that we were talking about the word resistance. Yes. There was some resistance there. But as I started to peel away the layers of that protection that I had around my heart and around, everything, I started to realize, you know, something, I am designed to be a teacher. I
Mm-hmm.
actually am that. And
Yeah.
it's not because I'm better than everybody else. It's because I know what it feels like to not feel so great about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it feels like to feel like you're failing at reaching your potential, and maybe not even knowing what your potential is built up of.
Right.
So that's, you know, now I work with brilliant people, but at every level of success, there is something that will undermine your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something your mother said to you, even though you're making $1 million a year. Something
Right.
said to you come up and haunt you
Right.
at just
Right.
the wrong time, and you're like, I thought I got rid of that.
Right. Right.
And yeah, and so that's one of the reasons. Like, and people say, what kind of coach are you? I say, I'm a communication and business coach, because the communication starts with a relationship you have with yourself, and then the
Yes.
marketing, your videos, your speaking, and all of that is that's the relationship with your market. But you have to.
Right.
It starts with you.
Right. So what I love and what really struck me when you were talking is this core of, the teacher, the supporter, the coach, to help people understand and love and appreciate their brilliance is it's so foundational to who you are. And then that outlet, it sounds like the expression of it is what's been changing over time, right? So you went through your work and figured that out for yourself, and now you're almost kind of going back to your roots, which the early test said you're a teacher, although you had no connection for it back then. But now you can see it.
No, not at all. Yeah, no, not at all. So I really think that sometimes our calling, maybe to get our first job, we feel like we found our calling. I thought my calling was to go be an actor. And then once I fixed the part of me that was the broken part that needed the acting in order to survive, I started to fix it. I didn't need it anymore. And actually didn't enjoy it anymore. And so I sat around going, well, what can I do? And somebody said, help women. This was my first.
Okay.
Help women make videos for their business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what launched Charisma on Camera all those years ago. And it's just sort of morphed because I just fell in love with my clients. And once they got comfortable, I work to get them comfortable on camera by helping them find out who they are. And then once you find out who you are and you're given that freedom of expression,
right,
to market with your core nature out there, not being somebody else, not acting as if, but really just being who you are and living, as you said, radiating, right?
Right.
All the great brightness that is within you. Then if you're really authentic with that, you're going to attract the people you really want to have into your business, to work alongside of you, to be your clients and your customers. And that's when life really feels like it's abundant. So it's even more to me than making sure I say that I help people increase their sales and revenue.
Right.
But it's really about helping them create that life of abundance. Usually that includes building up your sales and your revenue.
Right. And it's that, so you are very much about that inside out perspective. And love that.
Outside in doesn't work.
Right. No, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. So when you think of radiant achievement, and I know you've read, here are the powers that I teach and when I teach my program, what does radiant achievement mean to Sandra Dee Robinson?
I jotted down something as I knew you were going to be asking that question.
Yes.
Like, all right, without getting too prolific on it, what was it? And the first thing that came to my mind, I wrote down. I said, I'm going to go with that, whether it makes sense or not. Is it seeing God's light in perfect design, which is who you are.
Beautiful. I love that.
So it's seeing it and sharing it.
Yes.
Right? Because so often, like when I said peeling away the layers of all the negative stuff that I believed that were lies, because not only did my mother tell me that I wasn't worthy of being around, that I was, that life would be better if I hadn't been around, but I then found myself being bullied. And that took me down the path of having, an eating disorder and stuff growing up. So I had all of this negative stuff that I owned every single bit of it. I mean, wow. So I had a long way to go.
Yes.
A long road back to finding any light, so those layers were really deep for me.
Wow.
And, but the blessing is that I'm in the position where I can understand how people feel. I can identify with a lot of those layers that they may have on them that are holding that light down,
Right.
And And it's amazing. I really honestly feel that I have been with some people that I've literally walked into a room with some people that, as you know, they can radiate that.
Yes.
The difference in a room when they walk in, when they have found that light and they are just so authentic, they really do change a room when they walk in.
They do. You're like, what's going on? Like, you're trying to figure out, is it their outfit? Did they change that? Like, we automatically think kind of go to the external, but
yeah, but that's charisma, don't you think? Like, that's
it is 100% charisma.
That confidence, it's living in yourself and radiating.
Owning, yes. Who you are, where you are, what you are. And and to take a quick step back to what you were sharing in your story, and I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing, what you went through growing up and being bullied. And then you threw yourself into a career, which is full of rejection.
Yes. See what I did and what a lot of people do, and this is so important to realize. This was a big pivotal moment for me when I realized that when you're a child, you think your parents know it all. And my father adored me, but he was a man of little words. He showed me love, but the words came from my mother.
Okay.
They were not love. So I made choices that reinforced what my mother had said to me, because otherwise I would be proving them wrong. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know I could do that. So I made choices all the way up, and I was making really good money as an actor, but yes, it was constant, almost constant, well, you're not good enough, or, or even making money, I would go into the fitting room and I was one of the bigger girls. I mean, some of these girls are like half people. They're 99 pounds, right?
Wow.
I was that in 5th grade. And so I'm walking in to get fitted and they're giving me guilt about having a little flesh around my side,
Oh my gosh.
Your
really aren't showing enough.
Yeah, it really is like that. And so some people say, do you miss that world? And I miss the art of it. I miss the storytelling, but I get to do storytelling with my clients. So I don't.
Yes.
But there is a part of it that was really kind of cancerous and toxic, and I'm glad I'm away from it.
Yeah. Well, and you got to that point where you were actually able then, as you peel back those layers, to see the stories, like you said, and that is important in your work. It's important in my work for all of us to realize that we do have those stories and different things. There are opportunities when we're triggered or we're activated. And I'm rereading The Untethered Soul right now, and I'm reading some of the words, and I don't remember hearing this part before, but now I'm in a different place, so it's a different meaning to me, and I get it in a different way. So just to kind of own that, things weren't perfect, that we do have these layers and these stories that we're here with. And if we're not getting the results, let's peel back in a loving way those layers without guilt, without judgment, and let that more of our authentic self shine.
Those stories, when you pull away the layers, as we said, and you really look at it in a very almost a removed way, and you look at the little girl that was told this or told that, when you were married, maybe your husband did this to you and told you that, and you believed it. All these things that were really not your voice, not God's voice. You can return those messages then. And you can then look at the story that maybe should be told, because that's something that can help someone else. And everybody has a story. If you have, and everybody wants to be seen. That's the two things that are the most important that I learned about humanity over all of these years and all the studies and all the certifications and all the stuff that I've done, is everybody has a story worth telling. And everybody wants to be seen. From a homeless person on the street, you pay them attention and you actually say hello to them and see how different their face will change. They don't expect you to see them.
Right.
To a celebrity, okay, they want to be seen. And so if you walk up and you show genuine interest in them as a human, again, you'll see a total shift, because they're so used to being a certain way. So when I teach people to interview, that's one of the things that I teach them to, is how to break through that ice in a very authentic and legitimate way and show interest in the human, and their real story, because that's where the richness lies,
Right.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you. We all have those stories, and we all do want to be seen and accepted for who we are. And yes, thank you. So if you look at your journey and, again, going back as far as you want, what would you say would be some of the most significant or possibly even surprising powers that you discovered in yourself, or some key shifts that you made that really helped you as you faced or journeyed each of your callings?
I think the most significant shift was from that girl hiding in the corner, literally, to having somebody point at me. And I finally allowed myself to believe that I was worthy of taking the lead in something. So I had been given opportunities to take the lead on projects because they saw something in me that I didn't see. Finally, I got to the point where somebody gave me the opportunity to teach.
Okay.
And I thought, well, okay, I'll try. And that, I guess, right? I still use the word try at that point.
Right.
I'll try. And I did. I gave it a shot, and I became quickly one of the favorite teachers in that arena. And so I was working on somebody else's shingle, and it proved to me that there was more to me than what I had been told.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually that allowed me to kind of peek under all my layers of stuff. And it was almost like when you go up into grandmother's attic and you start pulling out boxes, you're like, oh, look at that.
Right.
And I did that. And
right.
I remember I had a talent for that. And I bet I can still do that. And I bet, and it was literally like uncovering all these little things that were really a part of me that had been shut off.
Yeah.
And then, being able to apply those. And I say the other thing that really, I think, got me through a lot of tough times was just tenacity. And just, there's sometimes mixed with resistance, it can be a little dangerous, as we talked about. But I think tenacity, that belief that I was in the right place, doing the right thing. And I don't think without tenacity, I couldn't have survived in the Hollywood acting industry for as long as I did. And I couldn't have. So while I took the hurt and I owned it, I kept going. And it's because somewhere deep down inside, I think, God was working on me.
Right.
And I always knew there's something more. So I'm going to keep going. And I just kept putting one step in front of the other. One foot in front of the other. I think tenacity was really part of it. Tenacity based in hope somehow.
Oh, beautiful. So it sounds like you had a knowing, right? That even though you had all these messages and experiences, it sounds like there was a part of you that like, I almost feel like there's more to me, there's more to life, and I'm not going to give up on it.
I think a lot of us do have that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us shut it off, which to me is the saddest thing ever. And if you are listening to your podcast or watching this, then you probably are one of those people that believes that there's more, and that you can, and that that you can shift and change, and you can create your life more like you want it to be. You don't have to live at effect of everything coming at you. But we all also know that there are members sometimes of our own family that don't see that possibility.
Right. That this is the way it is, right? And they just have just put themselves in a box or whatever was created, those stories, programs, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way I am and the way life is. And that's where they are. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where they are. And so with love, we can hope to pull them out of that, but sometimes they don't. And all we can do is keep celebrating our own light, right?
Yes.
And show them an example.
And they may at some point get sparked and maybe not. And that's their journey in this. So I have a quick question to dive a little deeper. When you were on that, and I actually used this analogy myself recently, like turning those rocks over, peeling those layers back. Yeah. Did you have like a fierceness about it, or like that fire of like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, or I'm going to dive deep and I just want to figure it all out? Or was it a little more cautious? I don't know.
Oh, no, I'm not cautious. No.
Okay.
I will admit, and I don't know how, I'm just going to say this and I don't know how it's going to come across, but I was fired by anger. I was fueled by fire.
Okay.
Because I felt like I'd been sold a bag of goods and I was mad at myself for buying it. That message, I bought into it, and I was angry for the person or people that gave me the message.
Got it.
So that fire lit me into really passionately I spent thousands and thousands of hours and thousands of dollars in self-empowerment things and certification courses and learning about the brain, which is still one of my favorite things. And communication, animal communication, plant communication, human communication. That's still my passion. And my husband hasn't seen it yet. He laughs at me all the time. For the stuff that arrives from Amazon, right? Oh. I'll crawl into bed and I'll have a book and he goes, "Oh gosh, what is that?" I said, "Oh, how trees communicate, honey." And he goes, "Oh no.
Love it.
Yeah. But I set off with a fiery anger,
right,
to get everything back that I thought I had taken away. And so my next step was forgiveness.
Oh, sure. I can imagine.
Yeah. But there was, that forgiveness had to come into place, and then it sort of balanced out. But the pendulum swings, and I'll see it with my clients as well, that if anger is what it takes to get you out of your stuckness or get you into the next phase, then go. Right. And you got to course correct. You're always.
Yes. With all of that inner work and the consciousness, like to really own, and I've seen this in my journey, is to own wherever I'm at, whatever I'm feeling. And, some of the messages I had growing up, and then that carried into my marriage was, "Oh, why do you feel that way? You shouldn't feel that way. That's crazy. That's ridiculous." And so, not owning, not like my feelings were wrong. And so my journey, as I was diving deep, like I'm going to peel back all the layers. And I looked at myself, I looked at the stories, and I was like, damn it, my feelings are legitimate, because that's where I'm at. Right. And as I face things and face the stories, then I allow things to shift and change. But if I'm staying, in that place of stuckness, then nothing will shift. So
true. When somebody says you shouldn't feel, a lot of times, which is essentially what you shouldn't feel. Right? Or you shouldn't let me know that you feel, because they can't process it.
Right. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
So it's not a reflection of you whatsoever. So
right. Valuable information. Yes.
Yeah. Big step.
Yes, definitely. So again, you've had a variety of things that have come in and out of your life, and the callings, going back to the teacher part of you and helping bring out the light. How would you say, has your calling changed recently, or do you see it having taken surprising directions that maybe you hadn't anticipated?
Yes, for sure. I've always had that love of animals and wildlife, and always thought that beauty can heal and teach us, and beauty to me is nature. So when I first learned about working with horses, for instance, in therapy and helping people heal, I thought, wow, that's amazing. I feel like it has something to do with me, but I don't know what. And actually about 2 years went by before I actually started to investigate that. And so for a bit there, I was just really, really excited about the ability to work with women in their leadership and communication, and be able to use horses in order to do that. Because again, I kind of felt like their process was with the horse. It was like that God speaks through these animals. I'm just there to facilitate it, and whatever they will come up. And it was always based around relationships, whether it was boundaries that needed to be put in place or taken down, or whether it was a communication thing that they weren't being so forward, and they could have been, and they didn't feel empowered, and then they would. There were so many amazing things that happened with working with the animals in a really natural environment that I learned, and I still do that work with my higher end clients.
Okay.
But what I learned from that was there are so many different ways for people to find that healing and the strength, and to recognize how they actually show up in the world and what makes them shine. And so sometimes we have to be open to different ways, like working with horses. Who would think, for some people would not understand that standing in a round pen with a horse and staring at it is eventually going to get you to a point where you won't let the men that you're dating abuse you anymore, or assertive enough to be able to stand up for yourself in a business meeting, or like you don't know that that's where it's going to take you. And I don't know. you know.
Right.
But it turns out to be such a natural process, because when you're with a horse, this was the biggest lesson of working with them. You have to be in a state of being present.
Ah.
And in appreciation.
Wow.
Of feeling the way you are at that time.
Right. Right.
So you can't walk up to a horse in that round pen and say, I am confident, if you're not. Is anybody out there that knows horses? That horse will look at you and go, and just walk away, right? And then the woman's like, she's not paying attention to me. I'm like, okay, let's try this. Why don't we say, I am trying to be confident, or I am learning to be confident. And do you know, as soon as that truth comes from their mouth, that horse would turn around and look at them.
Wow. Amazing.
But that's the true essence of who we are. If we can just come from that place,
yes,
keeping ourselves protected, obviously, but coming from that place in our relationships and our communication, what we do, and really even in our marketing, to be able to just say, hey, you know what? This is where I am right now. Own who you are, own how you're feeling, own what you know, what you don't know.
Right.
And just be really upfront, because we humans pick up on the same stuff that horse does, but the horse is a lot bigger in its reaction. So we see like a billboard.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's like
it has no problem walking away without saying a word.
There's no manners in the horse world.
No.
Like, I've worked with men before too that have come in like thinking they're going to command this steed.
Right, right.
The horse basically has just said, nope, and walked away. And then they had to really face like, what did they need to shift and change in order to get this horse to listen to them? And
yes,
learned a lot. Men and women learned a lot about leadership by really having to take a look at how they're showing up. And that's the number one thing that is to be able to take a look at, you know, how are we feeling, and how can we come up as being a really authentic and powerful.
Yes. I love that. I love that. There is so many things are swirling in my head about communication, and it's interesting. One of the thoughts is it's interesting in the dynamics of the communication with your parents, your dad not communicating and what your mom communicated was negative, and how that now has become a part of your work to help people see through the use of the horses where their communication isn't authentic, or where they're holding back, or they're not owning, you know, where they're at.
And who they are sometimes.
And who they are. Yes.
So sometimes, you know, there's a preacher named Joyce Meyer who I think has used the term, your mess becomes your message. We've all heard that before, right?
Yes.
And that's definitely it. That's one of the reasons why that story is so good to delve into, because there is somewhere inside of everybody's story that they can say, oh, this happened, this horrible thing may have happened to me, but it's so that. Right. So, yeah. And it's difficult sometimes when you're in that place of pain or transition or learning, right? That you call, if you want to call it a struggle.
Yes.
I read a devotional the other day that said, enjoy, or what did it say? I think it was even enjoy the struggle. Be grateful. That was it. Be grateful for the struggle while you're in it. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
Sure. You know?
Sure, right.
But I sat back and okay, what does that mean? Let's analyze that for a second. Let's own that. Let's actually meditate on that for a little bit. Let's get present with that. And what does that mean? Appreciate, grateful for the struggle that you are in, because you know that at some point it's going to come back around and be good. Right. And it's hard sometimes to see that.
Of course it is. And especially when you're in the middle of it, like you just want the pain to go away, and whose ever fault it was, they need to be responsible. Right. And like you said, you kept putting yourself in places that would reinforce the messages from your parents. And then ultimately you saw there's a bigger story, you know, about me, a bigger purpose for me, a bigger, you know, more authentic message. And so I see how, and I'm sure you've run into people too that have, again, they've chosen to be stuck and said, and I think this is part of my work, I want women to see, you know, they are just stories, and you don't have to identify yourself as the divorced woman, or the one that was cheated on, or the one that was what, you know, and how that's not who you are. That's something that happened to you. And then how can you use that for your growth, for your.
Can I throw
Yes,
something in there I just
please.
saw? You remember Amy Smart,
Yes.
kidnapped 91 days?
Yes.
Okay, so that I saw an interview with her recently, and she said there was a girl that was returned after I don't know how many months away, and she was returned to her family alive. They found her alive, and so they interviewed Amy Smart, and they said, you know, what would you tell her? And I thought it was such a great message for anybody. She said the first thing I would tell her is that her situation does not define her.
Yes.
Despite the fact that you may be getting attention for something right now, that does not need to define you. So and that's good and bad, to be truthful, because for a long time, me being a hardworking and very employed and well-paid actor was my title.
Mm-hmm.
It defined me. And then when the show would end, it didn't define me. And I thought, if it didn't define me, then I'm worthless now. You know, so your job doesn't define you. Your situation doesn't define you. You can choose. And she said to this girl, her message was, you can choose to be whoever you want to be.
Right.
It's your choice.
Right.
So do not let other people, do not let a circumstance, do not let a job, do not let a title define you.
Right.
And I thought that was like the best, most golden nugget that she could have put out there. And I just wanted to share that because
thank you. No, that's powerful. And think of the situation she came from, and to have that perspective. And you know, she's you know, that's something will help a lot of people. And she's connected with, we are so much more than what happens to us. And good. Thank you. So that kind of segues into my last question. Yes. Which we've talked a lot about, you know, our inner strength and powers we've engaged to help us, and again, peeling back those layers. So one of the powers in the powers of radiant achievement is authentic self-worth. And I'd love to ask and hear from you, how has owning your authentic self-worth supported you in your journey of life and pursuing your callings?
I think there's so much richness there. And I say that with complete gratitude, that there's so much richness there, because richness is not in your bank account, because I had that and I had no self-worth. That was not a life of abundance. Yeah. But once I started to appreciate who I was and realize that I was believing things that weren't true, and that I did have a lot of potential even now. I mean, I'll feel like I have potential hopefully when I'm 80. You know, I just hope it just keeps going. Right. Because at every turn in life, I think we're gifted something that we can share. So I hope that continues for me as long as possible. But I think that the biggest gift of the self-worth is that once I own mine, I bring it out in others. If I didn't own me, it's like that, you know, that stupid thing that everybody refers to, being on the airplane. I can't believe I'm mentioning this. Right.
It's slightly overused.
It's so cliche, but the whole mask, you're not even going to go into it.
Right,
you know, mask kid, the whole, okay. So it's the same way with owning, you know, that relationship with yourself has to come first. And then you can work on healing other people. You can share that love with other people. And I did not feel like I was very loving until I learned to do that. And I would never have been able to build the business that I built, to be able to see potential. Like today, I had several phone calls that just lit me up because of the potential of people that I'd be able to reach and give them that freedom. That's okay. I'm a dog person, remember?
Okay, I know. He may speak a little bit while we're...
I'm surprised mine haven't. They're a lot louder.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I have 2 German Shepherds. You would have known.
Yeah. I've seen them in pictures.
Yes. So I think that owning the authentic worth, and I never would have been able to land my husband.
Okay.
Until I recognized what I was worth, or even started to recognize what I was worth. I've grown a lot since I've been with him, which is a blessing because he's the guy to bring that out in me. Wow. But until I did that, I was dating all the wrong guys. I was dating guys that had potential. That's a whole
I know that story.
I know, a whole nother podcast for ladies.
Yeah,
right?
good. We could do that. Would love that one.
Yes. So I think, you know, that's just some of the little nuggets that came from that. Okay. Self-worth.
And would you say in really claiming your worth, was that part of what came out of your journey of peeling the layers back, of facing, that anger and diving deep, or was there something in particular you could suggest or recommend that helped you to own your worth and claim your worth?
I think a lot of it was, and I have to give a shout out to coaches, because and some of them I put maybe too much faith in.
Okay.
Because I was reaching and I was just like grabbing at anything, right?
Got it.
The ones that I look back on and go, wow, I don't think I would be in that conference room with that person now. I still got something. So I'm glad I reached out, but I scraped to get the money together to go learn something about myself, because that was a building block.
Got it.
And I think I had to learn to be a little patient, because you don't build yourself from troubled and struggling to thriving and loving yourself in one day. There is
right. No quick fixes here.
No quick fixes. But I think surrounding yourself with people that empower you. And if there's members of your family that don't empower you, I'm not saying I'm not saying divorce your husband. I'm not saying never talk to your brother or your sibling or whatever. But limit your time with those people until you really get the appreciation of who you are. Surround yourself with people that, for lack of a better word, can be cheerleaders for you.
Right.
Not the best in you.
Right.
Surround yourself with people that are positive thinking. And when I started to make that shift, it was, and I'm going to be honest, it wasn't easy. I had to cut people out. I changed my friends.
Wow.
I changed the friends I used to go out and party with when I was in Hollywood. They weren't bad people, but they weren't the people that were going to get me to where I wanted to be. Right. So with love, I let less time be spent with them, and I spent more time with people that challenged me, that I could learn from, that I could see were living lives like I wanted to live, whether they were joyful or just fun-loving. And I didn't feel like I had enough of that. So what made them joyful? What made them fun-loving? And a lot of times it was that authentic self-worth.
Right.
They were worthy of having fun. And for a while there, I reached the point where I'm not worthy of having fun yet. I'm not worthy of it. So I went through a lot of that, but always found that having coaches to keep me accountable and things, and surrounding myself with the right people. Right. Community. Beautiful. Yeah. Great messages and wisdom for those that are listening today. And I concur. I've had very similar journey in going from I should be able to figure this all out myself to knowing I can't, and I'm probably struggling more than I need to. And there's people out there that love me, support me, and help build those muscles within myself till I called it getting my sea legs back, when I could really just stand, in my own power and own all of who I was. It definitely, I was like that little fawn, just really shaky and wobbly in the beginning. And did you find it hard to ask for help? It wasn't like I wanted the help, but it was more if I found it hard to pay for the help. So getting the coaches, paying for the programs, because I didn't feel I was worthy enough to be doing those things, right? Like I'm going to sign up for, how many thousands of dollars or hundreds or whatever the case may be. Like, am I really worth it? Or maybe I should just, I can maybe figure it out with a book, another book. The shelf help. We've all done that. Yeah, I have an office that's full of. There's some back there. Yeah. I love my books. I'm always reading a book, but anyway, so for me, it was really stepping into, I would have done it for my kids in a heartbeat. I never would have thought about it. I'll forgo that vacation to Europe to have my child in some private whatever, but they're grown now and on their own. And so what's holding me back from giving me what I really need? And, in a way that fits within, what's important to me and my budget and my lifestyle. And I'm like, oh, I need to up my game here. And so once I started doing that, it opened my eyes to, wow, I am pretty damn amazing. And not that I needed somebody else to tell me, but it was through those programs I was able to start to peel back my layers. And
And like you said, like that potential, that journey, it's never going to end. And I personally feel the more we connect with who we truly are and embrace it and love every fiber of us, the more energy we have to go out and whether it's do our work or to have fun or to inspire and touch somebody else's life. You know,
I just want to add one thing, because you said you didn't need someone else to tell you how fabulous you were, but I just have one last nugget that came up, and I feel like I need to share it.
Perfect.
So part of that owning your self-worth is we don't own it when somebody gives us a compliment. And how many of you right now, when I'm saying this, are going to be listening or watching this going, yeah, I do that. Somebody compliments you, whether it's how you look, whether you're smart or, clever, or what, they give you a compliment and you shove it away.
Right. I don't do that anymore. Yeah, but
no. So I want to encourage everybody out there, women, when somebody gives you a compliment, hush that little negative voice, because it's not your voice, it's not God's voice, and say thank you.
Say thank you.
And
even
you don't
have to say anything.
Then,
yes.
Right? And even if you can accept it in your heart right then, you walk away and you shove that inside and go, you know what? They thought I was smart. I am smart. And own it.
Yes.
Accept it, because somebody gave you that, and that's a gift. Say thank you, even if you can't say anything else. Just say thank you. And I learned, and that was one of the hardest things all those years ago to be able to do, was to say thank you. Wow. But as soon as I did, it allowed that silence right after the word thank you, because I couldn't say anything else.
Yeah.
To replay in my brain, because that's why you pause when you speak, because whatever that silence is, the audience will replay what you just said. And so when I said thank you, I then replayed that conversation of them telling me something nice.
Right.
And I eventually got to the point where, you will eventually get to the point where you can accept it. And that's a step into owning your authentic.
Yes.
So,
good point. Very true. And you're right. A lot of women tend to, it's no big deal, or yes. So thank you for adding that nugget, another amazing nugget. Well, that brings us to the end. Are there any, I know you added a beautiful nugget with what you just said. Is there anything else before I tell people how to stay connected with you that you'd like to add?
I feel like we covered a lot. I'm going to go back and listen to this, because you gave some good stuff there. No, I just want to encourage people that if anyone has ever said anything to you that you are not good enough, that you are not worthy, I would even say go so far as to put a reminder in your calendar, the notifications for your calendar that pop up. Twice a day, put something in there that just builds you up.
Yes. A great, powerful I am statement.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Love that.
And even if you have time, if you bring the phone and it pops up and you just click it off, you've read it. You've seen it.
Yes. You're reinforcing.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Sandra Dee. I am so grateful we had this conversation today, and we were able to dive into your journey of radiant achievement and following your calling. I know people would love to connect with you. I went to your Sandra Dee Robinson website. Is that the best way to?
That's the best way. Yeah. You can hop on there. You can reach me through there. You can also find me on social media, of course. LinkedIn, I'm on a lot. Facebook, I'm on there. My coach page is the best place to find me, because my personal page, I don't post I'm not as consistent on the personal page. So if you find me, look for the coach page on that. And then Instagram, I'm warming up. I go hot, cold. I got to get my social media coaches on my butt with that one. See, coaching, I believe in it. So she's.
Yes. I'm in a similar place. Yes.
It's hard to do it all, but you can always.
Okay. Well, beautiful. Well, thank you, listeners, also for being here today, being part of our conversation. I would love to connect with you if we haven't already on thechristinehoward.com. I have a free gift for you there, and would love to continue our journey and conversation at that location. So please reach out when you get a chance. And Sandra Dee, I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Great to see your beautiful face.
Thank you.